What is going on? Welcome back to Trading Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about ticker MU. They do have the earnings coming out tomorrow on the 18th, so I want to give you a quick overview of some expectations, where things might be going, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, it is up slightly 0.9% today. A lot of volatility, so 107 the low, 110 the high. So I think this, in reality, why it's outperforming just a lot of the broader market right now is because of its discounted value, plain as day, because the data points coming out, the big ones is more so at the end of the week, and going into this upcoming earnings, which again is tomorrow on the 18th during the trading day. Earnings per share is the estimate $1.77. 8.71 billion for the revenue over the last 90 days, 16 positive, 8 negative revisions. And just generally speaking, looking at the forward PE, this is one very discounted stock. So PE of 12.37, and just looking at some of the competitors, of course it's kind of, you can't really compare apples to oranges all the time because everyone does something different, but Marvel is forward PE of 80.14. Then you also have ARM 93.3. So a lot of its peers are like 2, 3, 4x where Micron is. So ultimately, you can even just see generally based on the chart itself, it has lagged largely, and that largely comes from attributing factors, tariffs, just geopolitical issues and stuff like that. And I think due to the increased competition in the sector, you're also going to have, for this upcoming earnings, people paying attention to the margins. 2023, I think their margins were around 47.8. So you'll want to watch for people to kind of highly scrutinize that for the most part. But in my opinion, despite the competition, despite the geopolitical issues, Micron is sitting at a very deep discount. And right now, even the implied move, 10.63% in either direction, but based on the options, it is signaling for it to kind of move higher. And I'm going to go over the technicals and everything else. Generally, I do like to bring this up on a side note, not because any of these stocks are squeeze plays, but it's good to analyze what shorts are doing within kind of a stock, right? So 3.4% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 37.49 million shares overall are being shorted. 17,000 shares are being returned today. Cost of borrow average is 0.57. So like I said, just wanted to make it clear, I do not see this stock as a squeeze play, but shorts are starting to get back in. So it went from roughly around 3% short interest to where it is now. So it shows that they are kind of piggybacking most likely off of that tariff fear that's kind of looming over the broader market. But I think just given Micron's the margins, they're not really going to be affected. And once again, I think just people will think about those tariffs and automatically assume that people will stop ordering from Micron. That's not how it's going to go down. It's going to be ultimately the consumers, and the ripple effect due to the supply and demand change from that will be most likely 6+ months out. So that will not really affect the immediate kind of price, or shouldn't affect the immediate price of Micron. But going over options, 33 million in calls, 8.58 million in puts. 49% of all the options being done so far today are bearish in nature. Of the call options that are being purchased, you see consensus for it to be roughly around that $115 range, and then the bears are anticipating for it to be looks like $100, 103 for the most part, between that range. So somewhat both in line with this right here. So the implied move of 10.63%, give or take, plus or minus $10. So when it comes down to the high implied move, what does that truly mean? I like to somewhat overanalyze a lot of this data. So with it very high, it goes to show that the market is either anticipating and somewhat pricing in a significant miss in their earnings, or assuming it comes in line with expectations or above. This is where you're going to see a very significant boost in the stock price. And so when it comes to why people would be anticipating more of a downside, and that's just largely because of the high expectations. And just generally looking at analysts, this is some pretty high expectations. So even going into Q2, Q3, you have like a 360% year-over-year expectation for the earnings per share, 266, 139 or 136. So a lot of high expectations for that. Even on revenue for this upcoming earnings, that 8.71 billion, which 8.32 is the low end, 8.9 is the high, that does represent a 84.22% year-over-year growth. So like I said, a lot of high expectations. That could be the only demise potentially of their upcoming earnings, which again is coming out tomorrow. And that's just because of the very high expectations. And I think that's linked to just the broader market. Broader sector, sorry. So aside from that though, you're seeing a lot of big money getting in. So even based on a lot of the recent 13Fs, big money is increasing their position. And on a technical standpoint, so with it at 109, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So $109.76 is that next strong kind of pivot point. It was above that today, but regrettably not really enough to stay there. And just generally as well, the broader market is pulling back. So that's going to be one key one to watch for. Aside from that, 102. So once kind of, as I've mentioned already, this implied move also resembles based on its technicals. So for instance, if it is a miss, this is why you have a very wide gap. 102 is going to be that next strong support. Flip side, 114 is going to be that next strong resistance slash target. On the actual chart itself, let's kind of go over that and then I'll go over analyst ratings. So right now you can tell it does want to break higher and kind of defy a lot of the broader market. But it is kind of struggling right now with that 200-day moving average. So that's going to be something to really watch for going forward into the rest of today as well as tomorrow. But it's just been trading wedge bound so far today between that 50 and 200-day moving average, which generally is good. At the same time, it is trading above that super trend, which is right now at 108. Any stock kind of breaking above that super trend does start to get some algorithmic trading, some buying, similar to what has happened here in October. So where it went from roughly $100 to 113, that's kind of playing out this time around. But of course, with their earnings, that could just magnify things a lot, similar to what has happened in May. So going over as far as what analysts are expecting. So latest analyst ratings was roughly couple yesterday, so kind of abnormal to see some ratings coming in prior to earnings, but 175, 180, 165, 140, 150, so a lot of good ratings by a lot of good I guess rated analysts. So 66, 58 as a consensus, $153.05 is that price target, and that does represent a 39.43% upside. So just based on, in my opinion, the technicals, I am rather bullish on Micron. And one way to really play it on a side note is options. Very low volatility right now, so you can always buy calls and get them fairly cheap. But I feel based on the technicals and just by the end of the year, so encumbering their earnings, data points, rate cuts, GDP, PCE, all the fun data points, I feel realistically $120 to $125 is where it will land by the end of this year, assuming everything goes according to plan. If Powell, of course, comes out and says, yeah, we did a 25 basis point cut, but we're not looking at all for 2025 to do any, that might dampen things. But like I said, I think the blown out fear associated to the tariffs has made Micron a screaming buying opportunity, and where they could easily kind of surprise the market and just move higher. So let me know your thoughts on that. I can always do a little bit more of a dedicated video just to some of the fundamentals. It's true products, but I know in this video I kind of generalized things and just talked on technicals, but I feel like there is a hell of a lot more upside than down, and this is why you are seeing some abnormal activity today. So let me know your thoughts. Give yourself a shadow if you have been buying, if you've been selling, where you see things going at least realistically, and have you been dabbling with options, because you can definitely make some pretty good money by selling covered calls, buying calls, by doing any type of option. In reality, you can make a lot of good money. So one final thing I just wanted to share with you though, I did launch a Patreon where I'm giving buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolute bangers, so pop over there to take a look. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.